Everything is being influenced by code written by developers.
At some point, you're going to wake up and say, what the hell am I doing?
It's hard to believe. It's the largest group I've ever been in front of, I think.
We develop the future.
Hello and welcome everyone to this new issue of the We Are Developers live sessions. My name is Benedict and I'm so glad that you all made it today. So before we start, I have some amazing news to share with all of you. Our World Congress is back as an in-person event in Berlin starting on June 14th. So right after the session, go to worldcongress.dev for further information and to secure tickets. And also, right after our World Congress, there's another great event happening in Berlin, the Prisma Day 2K22, as you can see right here. It's also a hybrid event. You can also join it online, and there are some great workshops about modern application development and databases waiting for you right there. So, and also during the talk and the workshop, as we will start with a workshop today, please feel free to interact in the chat with each other and submit some questions, as we will have a short Q&A afterwards. But please keep in mind that we have a code of conduct. Be nice to each other. Here's a short video about it. So, right back to security, this kind of magic that prevents data and code to be stolen from your application. We have a workshop with two real pros when it comes to this topic. They both work at SoSafe in the security sector. Please welcome with me, Antonio and Amine. Hello, you two. How you doing?
Oh, good. How's it going?
Hi,
Perfect.
good. What about you?
Yeah, perfect. Happy to hear that. I'm also good. Thanks. Would you mind asking me where you're joining us from today?
I'm based in Berlin.
And I'm based in Köln.
Berlin and Köln. So you will both join us at the World Congress, I hope so. So back to topic. Please tell me and the audience what we are going to learn from you today in the workshop you will do.
Absolutely. So so Amine and I, we decided to put together this presentation to kind of give the people some insights about what is the process that goes behind, like when someone is trying to attack in a web application. But then I think this has become pretty common over the past years, and with people playing CTFs and bug bounties. But I think what we're going to do differently today is that Amine is going to give some insights about how to understand the attack sort of like perspective, like what the attacker has done, and what can be learned from these out of this experience. Like, what are the indications that made the defender realize what the attack actually did to the application? Okay, so very important topic. I'm very excited what you will tell us. So I would say, without further ado, Antonio and Amine, the stage is yours. Thanks so much. Yeah, so again, really happy to be here. Amine and I were just really excited to just presenting this for you guys. I think we named this workshop called the Attacker's Footprint because it basically is gonna walk you through the process of like someone attacking an actual application. And then after that, the aftermath would be like someone sort of like collecting all the breadcrumbs and trying to understand what has been done, like what are the steps that took the attacker to actually compromise the application. So yeah, this is presented by, as I said, Amine and I. And then before diving into a little bit of like what we do and how we're going to structure this, just want to say a few words about the company. So as you know, like Amine and I, we both work for a cybersecurity company called SoSafe. SoSafe is a cybersecurity company, but it's more sort of like leaning towards the human aspect of it. Like everyone knows that like hacking applications is a big thing these days, especially with the whole, companies growing immensely and just adding new, infrastructure in regards to technology. But there's always the sort of the weakest link in this section, which is just like always, most of the time, humans. So SoSafe provides like trainings in regards to that. There's a platform for like e-learning, phishing campaigns as well, to sort of like teach everyone involved in the company to sort of like understand how those things can become like vectors in terms of hacking as well. So a few words about myself. So my name is Antonio Mello. I've been working as an application security engineer for SoSafe. In my free time, I like to play CTFs. I do participate quite actively in the bug bounty community as well. Been involved with like, I'm a privacy advocate. In my former life, I used to be a software developer. So up to this point, I was just like pretty much like working as an engineer as well. And in my free time, like I do mess with music. So when I'm not around computers, I'm just doing music. Amine, if you want to say a few words.
Yep, sure. Hi, everyone. So I am Amine. I am a stock security analyst at SoSafe. So I am a SIEM enthusiast. So also I will explain to you, of course, what is SIEM later, and also I am a Python passionate, machine learning passionate. So in my free time, I try to like automate some things, building some Python scripts to like get my life easier. Yeah, I think that's it from my side.
Nice. Thanks so much, Amine. So moving to the agenda, like the things that we're going to be talking today. So we sort of like structured this workshop is not going to be so much about like showing the slides and just kind of like presenting ideas, but more about actually performing what we're intending to do. So first, the idea is just establish some common ground. We know like most of you folks are involved with technology, so most of the things should be very familiar to a huge chunk of everyone who's watching this probably. But I think like it's always nice to sort of like setting a sort of like a baseline. So we're going to start by establishing like a common ground, like trying to understand like the terminologies and tools that we'll be using. Right after that, there's the storyline, like sort of like understanding the idea of like the attacker's perspective and also the defender's perspective after the attacker performed like what it's supposed to be doing. In the end, we're going to have like a quick summary to sort of like revisit the things that we learned in this workshop. We might have some sort of like a Q&A at the end, and then we're just going to close with the final words. I mean, if you feel like want to add like something, just let me know. Sorry. So starting establishing some common ground, as was mentioned, like just to get something out of the way, just to make sure like when we just like bringing this up, like people are not confused about what it is. So a couple of things that we'll be using or maybe mentioning in this workshop is going to be the tools and terminology that we use in the InfoSec community that might not be so familiar to engineers and people not directly involved with the InfoSec. So one thing that we'll be using is this tool called Nmap. So Nmap is a port scanner. I guess it does more than that these days. Like it's you can find like vulnerabilities as well. There's Nmap scripts that like look for specific vulnerabilities. But former, as we know, like Nmap is just a port scanner, which basically like scans like a host and gives you like all the port open and closed, to put it shortly. So Burp Suite is another tool that we'll be using, which is like it acts like a proxy. So you send all the traffic from the application through Burp Suite, and then you can see things like how it's been doing the requests, and you can do like back and forth, like repeated requests, trying to understand how the application is behaving. Broken access control, or like I think we can call this IDOR as well if you find that online. It's basically like a problem when APIs do allow access from information that you're not supposed to be accessing from your current I don't know, like authentication or something. Like if you're not supposed to be like accessing this. Cookie tampering is another thing that we'll be using in this workshop, which is just basically manipulating a cookie to get like different information out of the application. LFI is called local file inclusion, and it basically means that the attacker can actually read files in the application based on some features. So for instance, like let's say you have a feature that allows you to read like a PDF, but then if I change the path, like it lands me in a different file and then allows me to read files that I'm not supposed to be reading. Deserialization issues as well, which is like a problem that has been very common for like Java developers, I think like Node.js developers as well. Just basically a serialization is a process of like basically taking a snapshot of like one specific object, if you know, and then you can use that for debugging purposes or just like to sort of like sending that object in that state to a different sort of like application even. And I guess like the CM. So I'm just gonna allow Amine to say a few words about what a CM is.
Yeah. So like I think most of you are wondering what is a CM. So CM is like a combination of security information management and security event management. So this tool will allow us to like centralize all the logs, analyze them, and then identify if we have some anomalies, if we have some threats. And this tool has matured a lot in the past few years. So now it's using machine learning, AI, and like all the fancy words. So it also uses the UABA thing. So what is UABA? UABA is like user and entity behavior analytics that will help us to like identify the normal baseline. And if there is any anomaly or like deviation for like from like any user, any entity, and by entity I mean it could be a DNS name, like host name, and everything, it can be detected immediately. So in short words, CM tool, like it's an automated way to like analyze logs, identify threats, and stop them. And like it's the main core in the SOC. And by SOC, I mean the Security Operations Center.
I mean,
Antonio,
if you can just kind of, if you just can say a few words about like popular CM platforms.
Yeah. Yeah. So like we have, let's say, I would say that there is top 3 of CMs. So my personal preferred one is Sumo Logic, which is really good product. Like it has a lot of features. It has machine learning core also, so we can benefit from the UABA at the fullest. And there is also some other CM products in the market also. We can mention Splunk and IBM Q Radar, but like again, my personal favorite one is like Sumo Logic, of course. Antonio, back to you.
Nice, thanks. So yeah, and just to kind of like give you a quick overview of the last 2 ones. So recon, it stands for like reconnaissance. It's a process of like trying to understand an application beforehand. And you know, in a process like in a real sort of like assignment, this means like trying to understand where the application is hosted and like DNS records and you know so on. Like this process involves like it's split into different sort of like categories, maybe the passive and the active one. So the passive is just collecting information which is already there. So you can use like tools like security trails to sort of like understand the topology of the network, what are like the IP addresses that are responsible for where this application is actually using. And then from that on, like you can sort of like started to come up with ideas about how to attack an application. And then the last thing that I want to mention is just like, if I say the RCE, it stands for like remote code execution. So basically it's the most critical vulnerability that you can find in an application, which means that by doing this, you have the ability to execute code and remote code in an actual box. So which means that you probably would have control like over the most things, right? Cool. So just moving to sort of like the idea of like the first step that we will be taking in this presentation workshop is just sort of like trying to understand and the mindset from both ends, right? So what are the attacker thinking when he is trying to analyze an application and trying to come up with ways to sort of like attack it? And again, like later, Amine is going to be taking care of the part where he's just walking through the process of defending and looking for the breadcrumbs, as I said. When I was doing this slide, I actually like thought about like just adding like a hoodie guy and black hoodie or something. But I think like trying to stay away from like the stereotypes. So I really sort of like the idea of like I want you guys, when think about the attacker, to think about this guy. He looks healthy. He looks like he's having a good time. He's gonna grab a coffee, hack some stuff, and just like walk away with his friends later on. So yeah, just trying to sort of like move away from that stereotype. And the sort of like process of like doing that in a sort of like high level is it's split in a few categories. So first is understanding the scope, which means that like you're gonna get like an assignment in a real life situation, and then you have to understand like, oh, this is the IP addresses, and this is sort of like the infrastructure that I know I can attack. And then after that, like after you collect that information, you sort of like run a few scans, automations, and whatever you have. So you analyze the initial results to understand if you have an attack vector that you can think of, like things that are outdated, things that are not part of, I don't know, like maybe they do have, I don't know, like credentials leaked somewhere. So like this is something that you can use as well. Just like usually looking for low hanging fruits first, and then if that leads to something else, like maybe based on the previous information that you got from this, like you find like internal applications, and then from there, like you try to identify vulnerabilities, which goes sort of like through the same process again, like scanning things and trying to understand if there's outdated things, and then as soon as you find things and possibilities that you can try to explore, like you started to come up with like hypothesis of how can I do this? Like what scenarios can I do? I think it's like a very good question to always ask is just what is the thing that is most problematic in this scenario? Just like what are the things that I can exploit in this company or like application that is just like the worst thing that it can happen to them? So like, let's say if it's a ticket, I don't know, a ticket application for like you're buying tickets for like concerts, just like maybe like if you manage to get like tickets for free, this is probably the worst case scenario in that situation. But again, it's just like coming up with like hypothesis and actually validating that. It's just like, can I do this or can I not do this? And then as soon as you find something, just like proceed to the exploitation. So done with the slides for now. So this is going to be like the sort of like demo time. And what I'm going to do right now is just I'm going to bring my my terminal in here. I'm going to open up Firefox for a moment. So I do have that in here. And then I'll be bringing back this tool called Burp Suite as well. And I'm just going to walk you through this for a second. If it's just like too small and if you guys having problem to see this, just let me know because I can try to zoom in a little bit. So the first thing, as I mentioned, would be, if you remember from the slides, is just like analyzing the results. So we do have like a host, and the story that I'm going to tell here is just like I was hired to attack this application. I was given this one IP address, which is just like it stands for the scope. So from there on, it's just like it's my goal to sort of like try to find vulnerabilities in this whatever thing that they have as part of their infrastructure, and then try to do something about it, right? So the IP that we'll be testing is it's this. So this guy right here. When you try to ping that, I just want to see like if this machine is actually active. So I'm just going to do this. It's not showing anything, as you can see, but this doesn't necessarily mean that like this machine is not, there's nothing going on there, right? So by doing this, like I'm going to start by running like an nmap scan. So the nmap is just, again, like the vulnerability scanner, the part scanner that I mentioned before. So I'm just going to do like an nmap PN. So I'm just going to be skipping this validation to see like the host is up, because it could be like if there's a firewall rule that is blocking me to identify if the host is running or not. So I'm just going to do this. PN stands for that. I'm just going to do @c for like running a script. So like if there's any known vulnerability, Nmap is going to just bring that information back to me. SV, and then I'm just going to specify the velocity. So I'm just going to do T4. I think it's called T stands for throttle, which means that like I can increase the velocity based on something that it does internally. And then I'm just going to paste the host right here. So I'm just going to get this guy again. And I'm just going to put in here. And then I'm just going to save the scan. So T minus WeAreDevelopers Nmap scan, and then out. Usually takes some time. So what I'm going to do right now is just I'm just going to run again in here, just going to open up like a different tab, and then I'm just going to walk you through what I already found, because I wanted you guys to see this happening, just like how it works, but I did that already, so like it's going to save us some time. So if we do and just open that up, like the Nmap scan that I first ran, there's a few things that are important for us to see here, right? So the first one is the so like it shows you like how long it took, like where is this IP address is actually hosted. So like if there's like a DNS sort of like conversion, it does that as well for you. But the most important thing, the things that we're actually interested in here is to understand like how many ports are open and what we can do about it. So there are 3 ports open. So port 3000 is the first one. It seems to be running like a Node.js application, and then if you're familiar with that, like like it's been used in the Express framework, which is just like a framework that is usually used for like creating APIs. We do have another application running and port 3001, which seems to be sort of like the same thing, but we don't have much information. Nmap can do like it tracks the title as well, like because like you can provide some more insights, but in this case it didn't, because there's nothing in here. And then the last thing is just like port 8080. There's seems to be like an Apache server running with, and it leaks the version as well, which is something that we can use later on. So based on that, I'm just want to take a few notes. So just to kind of like show you how I usually do this. So I'm opening it up like really quickly here. Do trust. I'm just going to create that here. Again, if it's like too small, just let me know that I can maybe increase the font. So I'm just going to create like an assignment here. And then I'm just going to list all the ports that are open. So I do have now 3 ports. So it's 3000 TCP. And then I do have, let's probably do something like this. And then it's a Node.js app, apparently. And then I do have another one, which seems to be the same deal. So Node.js app as well. And then I have another one, which is the 8080 port open. And then it does have like an Apache with the leaked version. And the important thing about this is that by knowing the version specifically, I can later look for something, if there's any like particular exploit, public exploit that it was already being issued, I can go back to it and maybe try to use that information to find that exploit and then just run that. So again, the Nmap scan that I ran, it's done now. So like if I just exit this for a moment, and then like as you can see, like it showed that besides the one that we ran before, there's also like a SSH port open. So 22. We can just save that in here, and then yeah. So then like we know the things that we have, like based on this, like you can sometimes try to infer the exact version of Ubuntu is running. Like obviously, like it can install like different versions of like SSH. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's tied to a specific version of Linux, but then like sometimes you can infer like things like this and sort of like move on. So now that we have that information, that initial information about how to go about this, the next thing we can do is just like try to see if those applications are running, if we can access this, and what other information we can take out of this, right? So my initial bet is just, I wanted to see what's going on in this port 8080 because it runs in Apache. It seems to have like this company's name, which is called Hackable Cybersecurity. This is like an Easter egg that I put it, but I wanted to show you what it is. Going in here, you can see there's a company called Unhackable Security, Cybersecurity, and then there's like products, services, solutions, blah blah blah. Like it seems to be, and they seem to provide like solutions for like cybersecurity. So you can see things they've been doing. They involve with like cloud, government, education, whatever. You name it. Some information about like how they do things, where they are like sort of located, like where their products been used, and something that is just usually interesting when I'm sort of like doing those things, just try to understand like what are sort of like the products the company has, because based on that, like I can sort of like try to think in ways that or look for specific things that they use in order to sort of like try to target those things, right? So I do see that they have like a vulnerability scanner, and you can read it, just like automatically crawl like the assets, web applications to identify, SQL injections, pretty standard. They seem to have like a ticket application as well, which is, I guess you could think that as something as like Jira in a way. And then like a report generation, just like get real-time reports for critical business databases, whatever. So they do have those things in here. And it's always nice when you have like companies that providing you like services, because they do have like offer you a ways to sort of like validate those things before, just like maybe providing you like a freemium account where you can actually use their product. And by using their product, you can actually sort of like understand how things are done. So if you scroll down, there's a few other things that are not necessarily relevant. So, cybersecurity news, blah, 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 some other things in here. One thing that I'm trying to see if is this, those links lead to anywhere. It seems that it doesn't do anything. So yeah, so what are the information that we can actually take from this and sort of like use this as a way to sort of like shape our idea towards this application, right? So I noticed when I did, I was looking for the products that they say like something about like this ticket application. And then they said like, if you want to test it yourself, just use the guest user in our demo app to understand what we were talking about. So we can maybe have access to like this ticket application and see if we can find vulnerabilities in there. But like if we click in here, it doesn't really bring us to anything to the ticket application. So how do we find this? Like, do they have that hosted somewhere? It's just like something that we can probably take advantage of. So one thing that we didn't check is robots.txt. So this file, if you go in here, it usually shows you like information about, specifically paths and like endpoints that you shouldn't be crawling. So like it tells like the crawlers to just don't go in here, like this is not allowed. And some other information about like maybe some of the sitemap, like if you want to, because it makes it easier for like crawlers to like go through your page, right? So we do see there's something in here. There's saying like ticket app. There's a scanner as well. There's API. So I was wondering like maybe if I just get this same guy right here and then just throw it in here like this, I can get something out of it, but like it doesn't show anything. So if I do that with scanner, also doesn't show anything. And if I do with API, also doesn't show anything. It's worth to mention that like sometimes like just trying to access the path directly, it doesn't lead to anywhere. But like if there's something in here, for instance, like let's say there's some other information here, maybe I could just like access that endpoint, but it doesn't seem to be the case. So I'm just taking notes of this path just for now. So as part of our notes, so I'm just going to do txt, and then these are the paths that I can actually sort of like, if I need to fuzz this later on, and I could And just in case you don't know like what fuzzing means, like it means like you can actually try to guess based on using word lists to understand if there's something else that I could use. Like, so maybe like if I fuzz this piece directly, like maybe I can, by using a gigantic word list, like I can actually try to guess if there's something else hosted in here. It doesn't seem to be the case by now, but for now, just gonna keep this as a note. So going back to the port scan that we did previously, we also noticed that we do have access to two things, right? So one is the port 3000 and the port 3001. I'm not gonna go for like SSH right now because like I don't have any credentials. I don't have any information about this. Brute forcing SSH is just like something that doesn't make much of a sense, like at least initially. So I wouldn't go for that. Like I'm still trying to sort of like surface this app and see if there's something else that I can find. So I'm just gonna go to the port 3000 now. And now I'm just gonna do something that I haven't done before, which is having the burp sort of like proxying all my requests. So what I'm gonna do right now is just, I do have this plugin in here, which is I can just change my configurations like internally so the browser is sending the connection through this proxy that I've configured previously. And then if I just intercept it now, and then I do something like this, you should be able to see something in here. It doesn't seem to be working right now, so I'm just gonna look again. There you go. So I do have now a request for this. I think I just need to change that as well. Cool. So just going to the 3000 port right here that we saw before. And then you see like my proxy is actually, intercepting that request. So I can actually sort of like sending that to a repeater, which is, I'm going to explain why I'm doing this in a few seconds. So I'm just going to forward this. And then when we do this, this application actually displays some information about the ticket. So this seems to be the ticket app that he was mentioning before. Like there's no way for us to get that through the actual links, but because of the nmap exposed that port, like it seems to be running like this ticket app, which is like a demo version, right? So just gonna go to the HTTP history in here. There's not much information about this. So it said something about like the guest user, which is I didn't do a very good job like taking notes. So like the ticket app does have a guest user. I don't know if I can use like any like specific credentials because it didn't mention anything. But like the first thing that it can actually do in this situation is just like try for very specific and common patterns for like SQL injection. In SQL injection, it means that I'm trying to manipulate this request in order to inject like SQL patterns that's going to break the logic in the backend and then allow me to log in the application, even if I don't necessarily have a proper user. So a few things that I'm going to try here is just, these are very simple patterns that you see on the web. Like every time you look for a SQL injection, you're going to probably find this. So one of those is, so this, and then or 101, and then this sign, which means like it's a command line in SQL. And then if I just try this and then send it out, I'm just going to see in burp. So you see that like it's coming back as like says the user or password are incorrect, right? So it didn't work. Like there's a few things that we can actually do as well. Maybe just try like a this instead, and then add like 101, same idea, kind of put that in. I'm just gonna remove this for a second so you can see. I tried that again, didn't really work. But then one thing that is interesting to sort of like show is, I just want to see the scope in here. Yeah, so it's not there. So one thing that is interesting to see is that like, what if I get that request and just intercept that and then try to replay that with my own sort of like text, because I don't want to just be interacting with the application. One thing that I know for sure is that if I go in here and just go to the network tab and just run this again, so like let's say admin. So there's an actual interaction with an API endpoint, which sits in the port 3001. So it's the other app that we saw during the Nmap scan, and it's sending that information there. So we can actually intercept this and just try to use that, and it's our advantage. So I'm just gonna do the same thing. So I'm just gonna intercept this request for now. Try to do like admin again. Just gonna get this, send to the repeater, and then I'm just gonna do rename this to login. Release this. And then I'm just gonna try to repeat this. So like basically just by using this, I got the wrong one actually. So I'm just gonna do that again really quickly. Intercept this. So this is not the one we want. This is the one we want. Send that to the repeater, login, and then just gonna release this. So as you can see, like now, like we can sort of like do the same thing that the application is doing, but we don't actually need to interact with the application. So by using Burp, you can actually change. It makes it easier for you to manipulate values from the actual application, whatever it's sending to the backend, and then like you can try different things. It makes it easier for you to just see the flow of the application, right? So we know that we are sending like the username, admin, password as well. We could try to just brute force this, but again, like we don't know much about it, so like maybe try guess, and then try like, I don't know, 1 2 3 4 5. Not 1 2 3 4 5 or whatever. So it's not working. So before like trying to sort of like log in with specific credentials, I just want to see like if by manipulating this, I can get something out of it, because from what I understand, like the application is handling like a JSON, and JSON is a format that is based on JavaScript. And basically like it looks like this, it's an object and has like a key pairs, right? So it's a key and a value, a key and a value. And then I know from experience, because that this is being sort of destructured, if I can put that way. And if the application is just like using some custom code to sort of like deserialize this information, not deserialize, but to destructure this application, actually get the contents of this this body thing that I'm sending as part of the HTTP, like I can try to manipulate things and try to break that logic. So one thing that I always do is like sometimes sending like an additional command, because this breaks the standard of like JSON, and then sometimes causes the application to break. So if I do this now, it does break the application, and then it just leaks that the application is then trying to handle like an additional token, which is this, and then like it shows the information about the position. So I was able to break that logic, even though it didn't log me in. But if I scroll down, I see like a path that is being leaked. So the application that sits on the server right now, like it's leaking the actual path. And this can be handy for us later in the game, because if we manage to exploit information about, I don't know, like if we find like a specific file that could be sensitive in a way, I know exactly the path that I should be looking for in order to identify this file. So I'm going to take notes of this. So I'm just going to do this thing, and then cool. But then it doesn't get us like in the application. So I don't know, like I was just, still thinking, like they said gas user. So like one of the like very unique combinations that, for gas users is just like gas as a password as well. So like, why don't we just try that? So going back to burp again, in here, and then we're just going to do guest instead, just removing this. It did get us logged in. So if you see the application is responding differently, so it sends like this 200, send a token as well, which is a base 64 token, split it in 3 points. So like this is just a classic JWT token. So I don't know what that is still. I don't know if there's any information that we can use. So I'm just going to save that for now and the notes again, because we do have that. And then one thing that Burp does, which is so nice as well, is the ability to use decoders as well. So if there's like a URL decode that you need to do or something else, you can just put that in and then do a decode. So base 64 in this sense, just going to change that to text. And then we see the contents of this token. So it seems to be like using like ADES 256, like the algorithm. It's a JWT token. So the type, obviously, you can tell. There's an information about is admin false. This is, I think, like it's the time it's being released. And then the last bit you're not going to be able to see because this is exactly how JWT works. They have like a signature part as the last bit. So this is just junk. Like we're not going to be able to decrypt that information. Otherwise, we'd be able to sort of like forge those tokens, right? So, but we do got logged in. So I think like now one thing that we can do is just log in the application and with the users that we already have. And I'm just going to do, yeah, so I'm going to intercept this again. So sending that and then sending that to, I don't need this, get rid of this. So this get us logged in. And then we get some information about the application. So as you can see, pretty standard application, seems to have like some dummy data about tickets that have been created. There's actions in here that like it only allows us to see. So if you click here, you see that this application has, you know, like it's displaying exactly what it's supposed to be displaying. There's no interaction with the backend when I click on view as well, which seems to me that this is already stored in the client side. So moving forward with that, like what are the things that we can think about this here? Because we do have access to the application now, we do have like not an authentication token in that sense. We do have, but we do have, we can understand like if the application is actually interacting with different API endpoints. So just by like loading this again and intercepting this request, I can maybe see what they are doing. So I'm just going to send this to repeater as well and just get the tickets in here. Just going to load that. It's API tickets. Saving this as well. Some other stuff that doesn't matter. And then I wanted to sort of like reproduce this to see what the backend is sending, because one thing that is just like interesting to notice is that sometimes like the UI is showing something, but like the endpoint is actually returning more information than it should. So by clicking in here, I think I can just get this out. And then it gives like exactly information that we are seeing. But again, as I mentioned, like there's more information than it should. So one thing that got my attention here is just there's org ID, which it stands for like organization ID. And the second thing is just there's this admin false in here, right? Which means that like, can I do some, like the hypothesis that I would be taking into account here is just two things. So one is that, is there a way for me to access data from like a different organization based on this? And the second thing is like, is there a way for me to read like information from admin? Because like all the entries in here seems to be like is admin file, so it's not showing anything, right? So how can I do this? This is going to go like with a bit of like fuzzing and, you know, again, trying to understand like how the application works. So two things that usually would make sense to try here is like, so maybe there's like an endpoint, which is this guy, that like if I do something like this, like org ID, and then just paste that in here, like it would bring me the tickets specifically from this organization. It doesn't seem to be the case, but like maybe there's an endpoint that does that. So if I do this, it says no, like there's nothing in here. So I'm just gonna get rid of this again, maybe if I pass that as an additional query param, so org ID and here, and then just do something like this. It seems to be sending something, but like it's the same results that we sent before. So it feels to me that this is being just ignored. So like it's not being taken into account. So, you know, like you can come up with like a bunch of different ways to sort of like try to brute force this. But again, what I'm interested in doing is just trying to understand like how does he know that like I'm part of the organization one, right? Is this just like something that is linked to any information for this request? Because it doesn't seem to be. So, but I noticed like the new requests, as soon as I was logged in, I got this cookie, right? So first I want to understand if this cookie is being used. So I'm just going to remove that and just send it back. And it says like not unauthorized, which is kind of weird because like it's not an authentication token. It just seems to be like a base64 thing. So if I send that back, it still gives me the data that we want. So we know this value is being used. So what is the like next logical thing that we can think of in order to sort of like move forward with this? I want to get this data right here. And I'm just going to place that in my decoder, which is right here. So it's doing like a URL encoding. So like that's why it's adding this %3D here. I'm just going to replace this with the equal sign, which is what it is, because this is like a padding for base64. And then if I do decode that as a base64 thing, it shows me this data, which is there's a U, which seems to be like standing for like user because we logged it as a guest user. There's a TS, which is a timestamp. And then here's the org ID that we were talking about. So maybe this cookie is linked to what we are trying to do. Like, because if I wanted to access data from a different organization and the cookie has that information, maybe we can try to manipulate that and send it back to see if the application responds that differently. So what I'm going to do right now is just, I'm going to change this value to 1 here. And then I'm going to encode that as a base64. Then I'm just going to replace this for like a URL encoding thing. And then if I send it back in here, I get different data. So it means that in this case, we're able to sort of like tampering. This is the cookie tampering that I was talking about. We're able to manipulate the token, the cookie, which has this value that we can actually decode. Like base64 is not encryption, it's just encoding mechanism. So we can actually revert that and just send it back. And there's no validation at the back end that checks this. So by manipulating the value, we can actually get different data. So as you can see now, we do have access and information about this org ID, which is 1, and then there's different data. So we were successfully and actually exploit this first vulnerability. But there's still things that like I wanted to see, like I wanted to see like if there's anything else that I can use in order to just keep going, because this would be already something that I could report. But again, it doesn't necessarily give me like access to any applications, or like maybe I can try to scrape some users out of this, but it doesn't, it's still like a demo app. Even though like in this case, like I was actually able to access like a different organization, it doesn't necessarily give me any additional information for this purpose, which is compromise this machine. So I'm still thinking about this admin thing, which is just like, it's still bringing like admins as false. And like, I was wondering if there's a way for me to, again, bringing like information about like admins that are actually setting this to true. So I can actually information about the users that are considered admins. So again, one way that we can do this is just like try to brute force this by, trying to add values in here. So if I do admin and just try to do true, it doesn't really show anything. I can think of like in different ways to do this as well. So like maybe if I send this, in this case, it's just like there's no information in the cookie as well. So I could just try to add that as well. And maybe you can do it just for the sake of trying it out. So I think like if I do is admin in here, and just do true.
Antonio, sorry to interrupt. Could you please zoom in?
Yeah,
it's not that clear.
Yeah, I'm just gonna move this in here because like for whatever reason, like Burp is coloring that as yellow. So it
Okay,
just makes it difficult to see, but I'm just gonna move that so you guys can see it. So
sure,
if I
great,
just
thank you.
go in here, yeah, thanks for letting me know. If I just put that in here, this is what it looks like. So it gets like, I just add the additional as admin as part of the cookie. And then because I get this information from here, I'm just gonna paste that in this as well. It doesn't do anything. So like it's still bringing the same data. So what we just did actually had no impact on this application. So I think like the way we can go about this is just actually trying to find out if there's a query parameter that we can send that like would give us more information about it. And because I tried before, it didn't really work. What I'm gonna do right now is just try to come up with different ways to approach this. So like there's this technique which is called fuzzing, which is basically, it's basically guessing. We're just going to send like a bunch of values to this specific endpoint, which I think could be possible options. And then to see like if the application responds differently based on this inputs that I'm sending. So what I'm going to do right now is using this other tool called intruder. So I'm just sending this request to here. And what it does is actually like, it allows you to specify like pieces of the application that you actually want to fuzz. So I'm just going to clear this because I'm not interested in the cookie, but I'm interested in this pattern. And this is going to be is admin true. And then I'm just going to add this little guy right here so I can fuzz it. And then in the payload section, I actually will load all the possibilities that I think could make difference in this situation. So I'm just gonna load in here. And I did have created like a word list prior to this so you guys can see it. So basically I came up with a few possible things because like maybe in the back end, like the format is different. So it's not KMOKs, it's not like snake case or whatever. So you can just see that there's a bunch of like different payloads that I just placed in here because I think that could lead to something, right? So there's even this one that is just like base 64. So like if the server is just like decoding that first and then just using that information, like that would work. And one thing I want to do as well is not encode the payloads because this could lead to like a different expected behavior. So if I place that in here, and now that I have like my payload set, I do have the positions like the payload's position to fuzz. So I can just like start the attack. And as you can see, like we did have like some interesting results. And the way I know this is because of the length. So we're gonna analyze all those requests, but I know like it was different because one of two requests were actually containing like a different content length, which speaks to me that like there's a different there's a variation in the response. So if I go in here, like you're gonna see like the response, it looks the same as the other ones. So same deal as well. But what if you go to this guy and then we see there was a different response and then it was just like one result, but then we're able to sort of like change that flag and then get the information that it was set to true. So because of that, I'm just gonna send that to the repeater as well so we can see clearly. Send that information. And then we actually get a data from like the administrator and the description says change credentials of setup YAML after initial setup. So, and then the as admin is true as well. So we know that we were actually able to exploit this. So in this case, we know that this is a demo application, and like maybe like every customer that acquires this product, like he has to set up his own like environment which has this ticket application or whatever. Like you do that locally. You would do that, for instance, like with GitLab or Jira or whatever other application. So, and usually those applications, for instance, like WordPress as well, do have a configuration file, which you can find information about, like connecting to databases or like initial credentials or whatever, right? So the application is leaking that information as part of the ticket. So like someone, like the administrator actually create that and to someone to sort of like remove that, right? So now that we know that, we do have this setup file, which was this. I'm just going to take note as well. file containing credentials. And then now like the thing that we need to take into account is just like looking back to our notes and just see like, is that something that we can do with this that it can actually help? Just like we know that there's a file called setup YAML, and then we're able to exploit this API with a bunch of like tweaks. There's no validation, so like we know that maybe like they're not using like standard libraries. Maybe they're doing custom code, which leads to all those weird bugs that we were able to find. But like, is there something that we can do with this information that can lead us to get access to that file? Like maybe you could try to like find like an API endpoint that leads with files. Try to like try to understand the application a little better. But one thing that I remember seeing was this version of Apache. And then I know that Apache has well-known vulnerability from a path traversal thing, which means that like I would be able to access internal files of applications based on a payload that I'm sending. So what I'm gonna do now is just like, I just wanted to confirm that. And then I'm just gonna bring it up really quickly. So if I do get this version of Apache, just gonna turn it off like burp for a second, and then we just want to do like Apache this exploit. And then you see like this is usually sort of like the process. Like every time, like there's a ways to obviously automate that, but people usually do this. Like if you find like something that has a version, just like you go and look for public vulnerabilities. So the first one that pops out is actually the one that we were talking about, which is called the path traversal thing. And then there's someone explaining like he put together like a small script, like explaining how he did it, which is basically like just a request sending like this specific payload, right? So we know there's a vulnerability in this guy, and we know this application, the website actually uses Apache 2.4 to 45 to host the initial page that we saw. So what if we do now, if we go back to this guy, and then we put that through burp. I'm just going to bring burp back. And then I'm just going to proxy that information through. So I'm just not getting this. So we do have this request right here. I'm just going to send that to the repeater. And then, so this, I'm just going to remove the cache thing. There's, I don't need this as well. Let's give us a page. So what about trying that exploit to see if we can actually get something out of it? So I'm just going to go in here again, turning this off, getting the this guy right here. I think we can just do right here. Paste that in, remove this really quickly, and then what we're going to try to do is just like access the ATC pathwd file. I send this, it works. So we do have access to the application, to file internal files from the application. And then we see like, this is just like a common test, like people usually do this because they know like the application usually has access to files like the ATC pathwd. This is a very common sort of like pattern. Like we could just try shadow as well, but I don't think this is going to work. So like because like the user that is just like handling the situation doesn't have permission, but the pathwd is like a safe path because we usually know that this is going to show up. So we do, based on this, we do have access to something that is really important, that like we do know now that there's an Amine username in this box, and then there's a ticket user as well in this box. But we're interested to know as well that that file that was mentioned before, like the setup thing, right? So I'm just going to bring in my setup YAML in here, and then we don't know exactly where this file is hosted. Like it could be like anywhere, but then because now we do have access to that path that was leaked before, we can maybe try this. So I'm just going to try this directly. It's not going to work. So the file's not there. Like it's just sending like a 404, but we do have access to the path. So this path was leaked before, and then I'm just going to place that in here to see if I can still reproduce this. So it's going to be this. I think it's maybe it's just this. Maybe it's just this. I'm just gonna see that really quickly. We did have like an API, right? So if I do this, where's it landing? So I'm just trying to fuzz to see like if there's anything that I can get in here. So set up Mello as well. Just gonna look for my notes again. So it's home. Amine, take it. Yeah. So it's API set up that CFG. Yeah, there you go. So we do have access to this guy, which is this file that has been created with the initial credentials, and then we were able to sort of like path traverse this guy and get access to this. So we already know based on the PSWD file that we do have access to. They do have a ticket user created in this box, and then there's a password which is super secret 2019. So I'm just, and then we know that like the SSH thing was available, so we can pretty much try to connect to that if we can. So the last thing I'm gonna do is just try to use the SSH in this box. I'm just gonna get the IP and then try to use ticket user this box, and then try this password. Try that. It doesn't work. So maybe I copy something wrong. I'm just gonna try it again just to make sure. It doesn't really work. So what could be the issue in here? Like why, like maybe this application was created, I don't know, it's been around for a while, and then this was the initial thing, and then they changed that. But one thing that is just, and again, like now we go back to the sort of like psychological thing of this, the sort of like human aspect of those problems, is that what is that, like if you looked at this password, it says like super secret 2019, which for me, it gives me the impression that maybe this application, this user was created in 2019. So what is this one thing that people usually do that because they're like used to this password, they don't want to change it, they just sometimes increase the year or like the date or whatever. Like if it's just like a date, like a full format date, like they would just change this specific date, the month or whatever. So in this case, it says super secret 2019, but we're in 2022. So what if I get this guy and I just change this to 2022? And then obviously in a situation where like you're actually brute forcing these applications, this would be like a automated process. But in this situation, I guess just for the sake of explaining the whole process, like from end to end, I'm just doing that manually. So I'm just gonna do ticket user again, and then it's gonna be the IP address. And then if I place this, now I got in. So this is the user that is logged in, and this sort of engagement, like for now on, like I would do, just try to understand like what this box has like running internally and try to pivot into the actual root user. But for the sake of this presentation, I think like this is where the path of the attacker ends. And then for now on, like Amine would be taking over and just walking you through like all the things that I did in order to show the things that has been done in the backend, like while he was watching the logs, right? There's another thing that we could exploit in this application that I think would be interesting, but like I'm not sure in terms of time, like how much time would we have? And I want Amine to have, you know, all the time he needed to walk you through the logs. So if we do have time, maybe we can go back to this later. But for the time being, this is where the attacker path ends. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. And then, I mean, if you wanted to take over, it's all yours.
Yep, sure. Thank you. So I want to thank you again, Antonio, for the great walkthrough. It was really, really interesting. And like, I know all of you people are really interested and excited watching some offensive things, but I can assure you that the defensive things are as interesting as the offensive stuff. So first I will start sharing my screen. Yep. And now I have the old question and the famous question that we are asking in the past few years. So can you see my screen? Antonio, can you confirm?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. So first I will start. So first I will start by having all the logs in front of me. So as you know, we have this host or like this machine, and we are hosting a web server and some nodes app. And within that app, we are using some API. So first I will start by looking into the API logs. So here in the left panel, we can see that we are having the API logs. So first we can see that the hacker, who is Antonio, tried to log in using admin, but that failed. Why? We can see that obviously with the response code, which is a 400 response code. So that means that he didn't get access. So we will go a little bit deeper, and we can see here clearly that he was trying to do some SQL injection. So now the question is like, did he manage to get access or not? The answer, no, again, because we can see this clearly in the response code. So if we go further also, we can see that he tried to use username, %20 Amine, password %20 Amine. And again, the famous question, did he manage to get access? No, again, because you can see this clearly in the response code. As we go also deeper, we saw that Antonio tried to use some random passwords, but the thing that has caught my eyes is like, oh, we can see that we have a 200 status code. That means that he got access to that page. So I will check what usernames and what passwords has been used. So I can see that, oh, this attacker managed to get access using username guest and password guest. Oh, so this is the first lead of our incident. So I took note of that. The hacker managed to get access using username guest and password guest. Now, after taking note of that, I will go a little bit deeper, and I will check also that he was accessed and logged into the app again using password and username guest as well. Now we have this error, so we can neglect this at the moment. So, and we are going deeper and deeper. And here we see that the attacker is trying to do some manipulation in the API path. So he is trying, as you can see, he's trying to access the path /API/organization/1/ticket. But we are lucky that he didn't manage to get access to that, because we can see here the response code is like 404. But there is some interesting thing here, is that we have a 200 response code. So and we have this request, which is /API/tickets org ID1. So this is an interesting thing, and we should take note of that. As we go deeper, also, we can see that we have another 200 status code. As we go deeper, also, we can see we have another one and another one. But like the most interesting thing is like within those 200 response code, we have the body size, which is 888, and another one is like 888. So all of these requests have the same body size. So after this, we have a conclusion. So even that we have the 200 response code, we can assume that that thing didn't lead him to anything because we have the same body size, which is usually an error page or something like this, because we cannot have the same body size for different pages or paths. So the first assumption that we have now is like he didn't manage to get anything while manipulating the organization or the org idea as he tried. So now we will go deeper in the logs. As you can see here, we have another error, so we will neglect this now because it's not. It doesn't really matter at the moment. And here also we can see that he tried to manipulate another time the org ID and tickets over and over and over, and we have for the 200 we have 88.8. So we have the same body size, so we have the assumption that it's not working. So as we go deeper here, so I will get rid of those insignificant errors at the moment, but we will check them later. So here, as you can see, we have many API requests, and they are all full with is admin, admin, is admin true, is admin equal 1. So now this seems a little bit interesting. So I will just try to analyze them a little bit deeper. So first, we can see that we have response code 200. Response code 200, response code 200, over and over and over and over. So as the one can see, like he can assume that, oh, he got access to like all of them, but like logically, he cannot access like with all of these parameters at the same time, and like it's not logic to access those parameters and like all of those parameters are correct somehow. So this is not really logic. So what I am gonna do now is like to check the body size, because body size is like really significant in this case. So as you can see, we have 322 body size. Also, next log line afterwards, we still have the same log line. But as we go further and further and further, we can see, oh, hey guys, we have another body size, which is like 185. So now I am just going to get back and like to see the major difference. So here, the first assumption that I have as a security analyst is like, oh, so those are some error pages. Why? Because all these parameters cannot have the same correct result, which is not logic. So I will go with my first assumption is like, oh, this one is underscore admin equal true. This is a good sign. So he managed to get access to some information here. So I will go further and further and further and further to check if there is anything similar to this. And here, like as you can see, like we have 322 body size. So as we are going through, oh, here we go. We have another 185 body size, and here is another one. So I will check the parameter, and now the parameter is like is underscore admin equal 1, and here another is underscore admin equal true. So my first assumption was right. So the attacker managed to have access to some information using this parameter, which is underscore admin equal true. So as I said, my assumption was true, because here, as you can see, we have is admin equal 1 has the same body size, is admin equal true has the body size. So I will go with my assumption, and I will dig further and further and further. So as we are going now further,
I mean,
yeah.
so
Sorry?
just saying, I think it's worth mentioning because in this scenario, just to kind of give some context. So obviously in this situation, like I'm the only one attacking the application, which makes the flow sort of more structured or like more linear in that sense. But in real life, you could actually have like people interacting with the API the proper way, like actual users. And then
Yep.
in this case, I mean, would be actually looking into the IP address as well and trying to understand if this is like, is this IP allowed? Just like, who is this person that has been using this application? So apart from the taking into account the body size and the interactions with the API, this would be the information that would separate the actual users from someone that is actually trying to attack the application, right? Also, like I
Yeah.
think you mentioned like some patterns as well. So like if you go through a few lines, the ones that you're just displaying right now, like you can see that it seems that someone is it's attempting to do something different. So like I'm sending different values, and this is not the like there wouldn't be the default behavior from the user, because you cannot do that from the application. This is clearly someone that is trying to fuss this query param. And then I think like in this case, I mean, with that kind of practices like usually stands out as well. And I mean, would be able to pick that up because he sees like, if I'm trying to increase values, just tweaking values here and there, it feels like that I'm trying to understand how the application works, maybe just trying to find out some specific information. So just to kind of add that additional
sure.
point to what Amine was describing.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Antonio, for pointing this out. So I forgot to mention that all like in all of the logs that we have here, we have the source IP address. Like we have Antonio's IP address. So that's why I was neglecting mentioning the source IP address. And also we can see that we have the time stamps here, which is not logically to have like all of these requests like by mistake. So the hacker tried to like fuzz the app by using a word list for like all the admin parameters here, as we can see. So thank you again, Antonio, for mentioning this out. So I will go deeper and deeper and deeper. So we have this error that is repeating itself over and over. So I will neglect this another time. And here now we can see that we have some other interesting log lines. So here we can see that the hacker tried to do some post request in the /API/user/login, but he didn't manage to get anything. As you can see, we have the response code is 400, so he didn't manage to get anything. As we go now further and further and further, we are looking for something interesting. And like we can see like something interesting and something a little bit fancy. What is it? So we can see clearly that we have this thing. So many of you, I think you already know what is it. So it's kind of a token cookie, something interesting. So as I can see here is like the attacker is using is_admin equal 1 and assigning it with this cookie or token or like this fancy thing, and he was able to access something because as you can see here, I can see that he has the 200 response code. And the most interesting thing also that we can clearly see is like the body size. So I took note of that, and I will check what this admin what this hacker got by appending and assigning like this parameter is underscore admin equal 1 and this token. So what I'm gonna do now is like I will do a curl using the same thing. So just 1 second. So I will just copy the IP address because it's like a little bit long. And now I will do the header, which is cookie. And I will copy this interesting thing. And now I will see what the hacker managed to access. Oh, so like as you can see here, we have what the hacker managed to access. So he got this as a response, like he has org ID, timestamp, name, administrator. Oh, this is a little bit dangerous. So we will follow this path, and we continue reading the response. We can see there is a description field. So change credentials of setup.yaml after initial setup. Oh, so this is a little bit not expected. So I will take note of this file. So there is a file which is hosted or like assigned to the admin. So this could have really sensitive information. So I will take note of that, and I will continue exploring my logs. As I continue here, like as I can see, like the hacker was able to access this file, like this cookie, like he was able to access this response using that cookie. And now we have some weird error. So like we have a JSON parse error, anonymous. So that's weird because like he was trying, I mean, by the hacker tried to access this response by using the cookie. So I should also reproduce this error, which is like some JSON parse error. And like it was directly mentioned right after the is admin equal 1 and assigning that that cookie. So what I'm gonna do now is like trying to like reproduce this error, because as you can see here in this error, we have some full path here of our own app. So now why I am trying to reproduce this is because I just want to double check if we do not have any deployment path leaked in our app, because otherwise it will be a disaster. So if the hacker could access this deployment path, he could have some good leads in order to like attack our app. What I'm gonna do now is like I'm gonna try to run a curl command. So here, as you can see, I created I have wrote the curl command -s-e our API path, and then content type application JSON, and then like I will just use something random in order to like reproduce a JSON error, so I can double check if I got access to the like if I got some information about the deployment path, so I can be sure if I have or I do not have a deployment path leak. And now here we have the response page. As you can see here, we have HTML things. Oh, and here we have some interesting things. Like we have this error leaked into the response page. What does that mean? That means that we have the deployment path leaked. As you can see here, we have the stack trace leaked. So we can see the same error that I got in the logs, reproduce it into the client or like the hacker endpoint. So as you can see, the hacker is able to check our deployment path, which is /home/Amine/ticket minus API. So from this, I will go further and I will try to check what is the setup.cfg file really is. So I will go further and further. And I can see also that the hacker tried to do those things again. As I can go further also, I can see that he got something interesting. He got some success response here using the is_admin parameter and the cookie. And he got some interesting thing, which is success true. So I will take note of that so we can check it later. So as you can see here in the logs, we have been able to check that our app got scanned by Nmap by the same IP address. So this hacker tried to like use Nmap to scan our app. So what I am gonna do now is like to run an Nmap scan also in order to like reproduce what the hacker was able to do, so I can know what information he got. So now I will run our Nmap scan also, so we will be able to see that. So in the meanwhile, as you can see, we have some app errors that are leaking the deployment path. So our next step will be checking the web server logs. So what I'm going to do now is like to start checking our web server logs, which is an Apache logs. So as you can see here, we can clearly notice that the hacker scanned our whole host. So he scanned our web server and our apps. So all of these requests are for scanning purposes. As you can see here, we have the Nmap user agent all over our logs. So all of our logs have this scan footprint. So that's good that we knew this, but we cannot do anything about that. So we need to find something interesting, because this user was able to like to find the CFG, the setup.cfg file. So now I'm gonna check what the next step that he made in order to like take advantage of those information, because in the API logs we got stuck. So we extracted all the information that we need from those logs, and now we are looking into the web server logs. So we are looking deeper and deeper and deeper, and we can see that he tried to access the port 8080. As we go deeper and deeper and deeper, we can see like he is also continuing scanning. As you can see, the timestamp and the source IP address, we can clearly see that he is scanning, but none of that is going to help us because the scan was already done. So we cannot do anything about that. So we need to figure out what are the bad things that this attacker has made. In the meanwhile, I'm gonna check our Nmap scan in order to like to get the same information that the hacker made. So here we can see that we have an OpenSSH port, and we are using OpenSSH 8.2.p1. And also we have port 3001 for the Node.js app, and we have the Apache HTTPD 2449. So while keeping this in mind, I will continue looking for our web server logs. So until now, we didn't find anything suspicious. But hey, now like I can clearly see something really interesting, I would say fancy, which is like slash CGI minus bin slash these weird things. So as I have already encountered this in my job, I know that this is a payload. And while continuing checking these lines, I can see, oh, /etc /passwd. So this attacker tried to take advantage of the well-known vulnerability, which is called path traversal vulnerability. And the most interesting thing is like we have the response code 200. So that means the attacker was able to access this important file. So, oh, that's really bad. So that means that that our web server has this vulnerability. So I want to double check this, and I will just copy this and open this tab to check if this Apache version is vulnerable. And yeah, as you can see here, we have the path traversal or like directory traversal vulnerability. So our web server is vulnerable. So as we can see now, the bad things happen. So now we need to like assess our loss. So now, as you can see, the attacker was able to access /etc/passwd. So with this thing, he got all the information he needs about our users. And by that, I mean like he could check all of our usernames in our machine. And now like we got the most interesting part is like this attacker was trying to access setup.yaml file that he found in the app. Now this is getting really interesting, but the thing is, as you can see here, we have the 404 response code. So the good thing, until now, I repeat, until now, he didn't manage to access this file. So as we go further and further, we can see he tried to use the /home/Amine path that he found here in our leaked deployment path. But fortunately, we were lucky and we have the 404 response code. So the hacker didn't manage to get access to that file. And as we can see here, over and over, the hacker tried to use some different path combination and none of them worked. So we go further and we focus mainly on the STOTS code or response code. But unfortunately, we can see that there is some huge difference. Now we have the 200 response code, and now we have another file path. So the thing is like the bad thing and the worst thing happened. So this hacker was able to access this setup.cfg file. So now we have only one choice, is like to assess the situation. What does this setup.cfg file really have? So I will go here to the another terminal here, and I will try to, try to see what this file really has. Ticket API, setup CFG. Oh, so this file has some sensitive information. And what are those information is like username and its password. And those are in plain text. So this hacker this hacker's next step will be to try to log in with this user, because he got access to the passwd and he saw what are the users that we have. So what I am going to do now also is like to check our users and to check if we have this ticket user in our host. So what I'm going to do is like access this file /etc/passwd, and we will check from the beginning of the file. And here, as you can see, you cannot see anything. Oh, but here we have this ticket user. And like I'm just trying to like simplify anything, and like I don't want to like use anything fancy or like to grep anything, so I am doing everything manually, so you can have a better idea about the log analysis. So here, as you can see, we have the ticket user. Oh, that's cool. Now with this information, this precious information that we currently have, that we have the ticket user is a user in our host, and this setup.cfg file has the password of this user. So now what I'm gonna do is like I'm gonna check the auth.log file in order to check if this user was able, if this hacker was able to access this user. So now I am gonna check the auth.log file that I have on the left side here. Antonio, let me know if you can see this clearly.
Yeah, it's all good.
Okay, cool. So as you can see here, I will start from the beginning. So here, as you can see, everything is normal. And what I'm looking for precisely is some login using the ticket user. So this is the most interesting thing for our side, because we know that we have a user with ticket user and some password leaked. And until now, we don't know if this hacker was able to log in using that username and password. So what I'm gonna do now is like looking for this username. So I am going over and over and over and over. And here, as I can see that we have this line, which is failed password for ticket user from this IP address. And now I will link it with the IP addresses that I have here in the web server. So, hey, this attacker was trying to access to access this machine by logging in using the ticket user and the password that was leaked here in the setup.cfg file. So he was trying first time, second time, and he didn't manage to access it. And here, as you can see, we have the PAM authentication failure. As you can see here, the air host, the air host is like the same, has the same IP address as the hacker. So this attacker couldn't get access to our machine. But after those good news, here we go with the bad news. So here, as you can see, we have this bad log line. Accepted password for ticket user from this attacker. So now the question is how this attacker managed to get access to this, even after he failed like for like first time, second time, three times. Like he tried 3 times. So now I have the assumption that this attacker got those username and password, but he changed something, because it doesn't make sense if he got those information from the password.cfg file. And by that I mean when he got the username ticket user, that is a valid username, but for the password, like he tried 3 times. So that means something. So maybe he copied that password wrongly, or maybe we have in the company some weak password policy. By that I mean maybe we do not prevent the employees from using some incremental things, like using dates, using something, and then like changing them incrementally or something like this. Like the most obvious things, like everyone of us might do when like he's a little bit lazy. He just changes his password like by adding his birth date or like the current year or something like this. So I'm gonna test this. So what I am gonna do is like to copy this line. And here also I will try to access this host using ticket user. As you can see here, we have the password. So I will try to copy it. No, it's not working. So the most obvious thing is like copy it, change it with like 2020. Copy it again, paste again. Not working. Trying, incrementing again. Trying over. Oh, it's not working again. So I will try it over and over. Maybe I got lucky and I will get access to this. Oh, now I got access. I will just check, and hey, the current user is like ticket user. So the attacker took advantage of our weak password policy. So now in the meanwhile, I must be following our incident response, which we have. So I need to like report this incident and give my investigation result. So the good thing that I will take note of that we have a good log quality. So we have time stamps, IP address, request, user agents, status code, and everything. But the bad thing that I will put it in my investigation result, that we have a really bad password policy, because we are allowing our employees and our colleagues to use some weak passwords and just incrementing them year by year or like month by month or whatever. So there is two things that we need to improve it in this case. So we need to like inform the information security manager about this and inform all the stakeholders, inform all our colleagues of this incident, and after this we should take the post-mortem in order to like prevent this from happening again. So now I have some small games for you. Like as you can mention, I cited the most important thing about the log quality, which are IP address, timestamp, request, user agent, status code. So those are the most important thing, but those depends on the log source and its format. So if we have a web server, if we have an app, if we have a firewall, that will change slightly. But the most important thing is like we should have timestamp, IP address, and request or like error message. So now I will share with you a link to some funny games. So just 1 second. Yeah, so I will put this in the chat. Okay. You should access this website with this code. So we should enter this code as well. So let us start playing. And just inform me if you got access. Sorry, wrong button. I was trying to stop sharing this screen. Okay. So please let me know when you have access to this so I can start the games. Antonio, just okay. I think Antonio has some technical issues. I think he will be back soon. So Vincent, please let me know if everyone got access to this website so I can start the games. Okay, cool. So I will start the games now. We will wait for 1 extra minute to double check this. Okay, so Antonio is back. So now I will start the games. So they should be really fast. So the one who answers fast, faster, he will get more points. So let's be a little bit fast. So for each question, we will have 40 seconds. So here, as you can see, we have 4 log lines. So you will choose which log is like the correct one. And by correct one, I mean which log line has the best quality and not correct or wrong ones. So 3, 2, 1. Now we will see the answers. So the we have four guys that voted for the correct answer. So for the I will just explain briefly. So for the first answer, we do not have a URL request. So that's why it's not good. The second log, we do not have a timestamp. So that's the issue with that log line. And for the fourth one, we do not have a response code nor a body size. So I will just go to the next question. So nice. Now we will go to the second question, which will take 40 seconds as well. So those are a firewall log, so it's a bit tricky. So 3, 2, 1, and now we will have the answers. Time is up. So we have 5 voted for the correct answer. So now I will give a brief explanation. So the second option is like we have the source IP missing. So we need to like check the firewall log format before. So if we look a little bit deeper, we see that we do not have the source IP, which will lead us to like a lot of problems. So we won't be able to identify anything. So we will be kind of lost. So yeah, and for the third option, we do not have a timestamp. So the timestamp plays a really crucial role here. And now we will go to the last question. So we will see the leaderboard. Yeah. Great. Okay, so let's go next. Now with the last question. So now we have some error logs. I think this one is so easy, so everyone can score more points on this. So 3, 2, 1, and time is up. So, so the majority has voted for the correct answer. So I will just give you some really fast arguments. So the first one didn't have some error method. Sorry, so the first one didn't have some error level, as we can see. The third one, it doesn't have the IP client or like the IP source, and for the fourth one, it doesn't have an error message. So, thank you for participating in this game. And finally, so I want to mention that first, like I did all of this manually, as we do not have SIEM. So if we do not have SIEM, we will be doing this manually, and I try to like simplify it as much as possible without doing anything special, just reading the logs and extracting some valuable information from them. So now I will share with you a quick video of 1 minute showing our SIEM, which is the SIEM. So I just highlighted one point, which is suspicious HTTP user agent. So we will highlight this issue first in a quick short video that shouldn't take so long. So just 1 second. Yeah, so here, as you can see, we have the dashboards of our SIEM. Those lines means the records, and by records I mean logs. So, and for the second circle we have signals. What I mean by signals, so each records or logs that match some rule. For example, in this case, the rule is like suspicious user agent. They will be collected in some separate signals. And for the last circle is like the insight. So what are the actions that needs to be done? So here we have accessed the first signal. So here, as you can see, we have some suspicious HTTP user agent, which is the nmap scan. So our SIEM highlighted this immediately. So SIEM can detect this in real time without any manual intervention. So I will remove this filter so we can access all those signals. So as you can see here, we have nmap as a suspicious user agent, and then something interesting also that we have the OpenVAS also. So OpenVAS also was highlighted and flagged as a suspicious user agent. So by this, I just wanted to highlight the benefits of SIEM in some specific use case, as we do not have enough time. So I encourage you all to check the SIEM in much details, because it's a really interesting field, and the defensive security is as much interesting as offensive security, so do not forget that. So I want to thank you so much for watching me.
Thanks, Amine. Just in the interest of time, I'm just going to share my screen really quickly again to sort of just get the takeaways from this. So after this demo, hopefully it was not too long or just too difficult to follow. I think like one thing that is worth mentioning that Amine and we did this very manually, this whole process. In real life, a lot of the things that we did actually would be automated, but I think like it's valid to, automation is only valid if you know what you're doing. So I think like in both ends, we try to sort of like do the whole process really manually to identify vulnerabilities up to the point where, I mean, sort of like analyze the whole flow of logs, even though it seems a little convoluted sometimes. Like it's just to kind of like give you the idea of like how do you actually approach those things if you don't have any tools to support, right? Like in real life, you would have like a bunch of like other tools to sort of like automating the process. But then again, it's always nice to know that you know how to do things if you don't have those automations in place. So I think the last thing is like Amine actually did add a quick summary of like the things that he was found. So this is like the whole process of like going through the whole logs were actually summarized in here. I don't know. I mean, if you want to add any additional.
No, not really. So I just want to go like step by step. So first, we got the first interesting thing is like we knew that this hacker was able to access our app using guest, and then we checked that he was trying to manipulate the organization ID, and he was not able to do that. And then afterwards, we checked that he was able to like identify the right admin pattern to access the ticket. So he used the is_admin = 1 pattern. So he was successful with this. And afterwards, we found this profile thing, which is the cookie. So he was able to access as an admin using that cookie. And then like after he tried to do this several times, he generated an error, this JSON parse error. So I reproduced this error in order to check if we have some deployment path leaked in the client endpoint or like the hacker endpoint in this case. And yeah, like my assumption was correct, and we had the path leaked. So as you can see here, the attacker was able to like identify the path of the setup.cfg file using the path /home/amine/ticket API /setup.cfg. So he was able to access that file, and by that file, he got the username and the password, and then he did some tricks to make this password works by incrementing the year that we have, which is 2019, and he incremented it from 2019 to 2020 to 2021 and to 2022, and he got lucky and he got access. Yeah, so that's a quick summary from the first log line to the last one. Thank you, Antonio.
No problem. Yeah, so you know, like, and from my end as well, was just it's nice to kind of like see that like based on the logs, you can actually reproduce like all the steps that I took in order to exploit this. So it was nice to kind of like show that like you can actually get that information out of here as well. So I think like a quick summary from the attacker's perspective is just you know, the types of vulnerabilities that were found. Going a little bit fast here in the interest of time. So we were able to find a full path disclosure by manipulating the login attempt. So like by using that malformed JSON body, like we were actually able to leak the path. So the second thing was which is called IDOR, Insecure Direct Object Reference, which was we were able to access data from different organizations because there was no validation. It was just like something that was the way it was structured, like it didn't take into account that the user could manipulate a value. We did some things in the cookie tampering side as well. So we manipulate the cookie in order to get different responses from the application, which we did. Finally, we did the LFI, which allow us to read the config file, which and then gave us the credentials that we needed to log in the application. Unfortunately, we didn't have like time to show the RCE. There was a shortcut that you could take in this application in order to execute code directly. It was a bug that was intentionally added to sort of like display this. If you're interested in understanding how to do this, like maybe reach out to me and I can walk you through the steps. But yeah, so this was something that you could do as well, which was you know, invalidate this whole thing. Like there's two paths to go about this. This is one of them, just like ending by SSH into the box, and the second one would be as soon as you get the guest user, like you could just craft that response, that request in a way that you can actually get a code execution in the box. So general recommendations, you know, just from the attacker perspective, like information that is found publicly, like can usually lead to the footsteps. So initial foothold, that's what I meant. So if you depending on like how like the information that you're giving and is based publicly, maybe I can use that information to sort of like shape the way I want to attack your organization or company. Custom implementations are usually the source of problems. So like, and I think like pretty much like all the issues that I found in that application were because someone actually tried to implement that in a way that was customized instead of like just using like well-established solutions out there. not to say that like you can find like vulnerabilities in implementations for like ALF or something like this, but you can always like minimize that problems by using something that people use and it's well established in the industry, right? From the attacker perspective, again, just like drop the assumptions. I think one of the things I've learned when I shift from software development into like this area is a lot of things I would just not try because I would think this is just like, no, I'm not doing this. This is stupid. Like no one would do this. And it's not necessarily to say like engineers don't know how to do things, but like sometimes things just get by and people don't actually find those things until like someone actually performs a vulnerability or like a pen test assessment. So, just try things like, even if you come up with something that doesn't necessarily look that is possible or just like plain stupid, just like try that anyways. And again, like the automation part is really important. Like it's something that we definitely do as part of our jobs. But, like if you understand the vulnerability first, maybe you can just, tailor that in a way that is not as noisy. And in this presentation, obviously, I was deliberately noisy. So Amine could understand all the things that I was doing. But in real life, if an actual pen test assessment, I guess like people would be more careful with that. So I think and in that end, like automation, like sometimes can be really noisy depending on like what we're using. I think like Amine has a few points as well. So Amine,
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So I will be really quick. So from the defender's perspective, I have some few recommendations. So first, we need to check regularly and frequently for new and urgent updates, as there is a lot of zero-day vulnerabilities exposed daily, and so we need to be careful with that. Also, the most important thing is like to adapt a good patch management process or policy within your company. Also, I will say something again regarding the log quality. So the most interesting and most important things in all the logs is that we should have the timestamp, source IP address, request, and error message. But those things depends on the log source and the type of that log or formats. And also we need to like review the log quality with the security team regularly. And for the dev engineer, please be patient with your security colleagues. I know that security teams often like they demand a lot of things regarding logs, but I am sure that it's for the benefits for like the whole company to keep our infrastructure and our company safe and protected. And like even a small improvement can make like a huge impact from the security perspective. Thank you, Antonio. Back to you.
cool. And yeah, I think like just a few things that we sort of like would be nice. I'm not gonna walk you through like, but just to kind of give you a brief exposure to that. Like if you think those things were interesting, like even from the attacker standing point, for like the defender standing point, just some resources that we thought that would be interesting for you guys. So Web Security Academy from Portswicker is something that it's famous. Just pretty much like all the things that I did, just stuff that you can find there. Try Hack Me is another one. Hack the Box is a little different. But it kind of like gives the same sort of like vibe of what we just did here. And Pentester Lab is just, I think it's a little more focused on one specific like vulnerabilities at a time. So, but they all have pretty good content. So definitely check that. I think Amine has suggested some people for you to follow on Twitter as well in terms of, from the defending standing point. Here's a few blog posts that I thought would be interesting for you. It's just specific things that I like is just, it's mostly based on like a story. So it's not people, just explaining how they've, like, oh, we found this issue. It's just like a walkthrough of all the process, like the thinking, the train of thought that they had when they're doing this. So I think this is even more beneficial than actually explaining how you found a vulnerability. I'm more interested in that for the most part. And I think like you can learn a lot from those write-ups as well. And then channels like I recommended the two that are my favorite. Like IPSec is just this guy. He's a blue team actually, so he does pretty much what I didn't. I mean, just describe it, but like he's a pretty good offensive guy as well. So most of his stuff is like a walkthrough, hack the boxes. So like you should be able to see like all the things that he does as well. And Joe Hammond does the same thing. So with that, I'm not sure if we do have time for questions, because I think like we actually went through past the time. But if we do, this could be like a good time for it. Otherwise, yeah, we can just wrap this up.
Sorry, I was muted. Welcome back on live stage, you two. Great talk. Great talk. Thank you so much. Yeah, we are a little bit short on time, but I would say let's make room for some questions, if that's okay with you both.
Sure, absolutely.
Maybe
Yeah, sure.
first question to both of you. How did your tech career start? How did you go from newbie to the security pros you are today?
Do you want to start by taking that, Amine?
I think you can take it.
Yeah, so for me, it's just like not a very sort of regular thing, I guess, like because I was doing development for such a long time. Security was always a side gig for me. Like I wanted, like I wasn't sure if I wanted to involve that with an actual job, because it was just like this little thing that I would do in my free time. But then eventually, like I felt like I was more interested in that to like the things that I was doing before, just like working and building applications. It was fun. It gave me a lot of foundation, but for me, I was more interested in breaking things, I guess. So that was sort of like my mindset behind this.
Yeah, and like for me, like I was really interested in the cybersecurity field, like at an early age, and I was like passionate about SIEM. So I will recommend for anyone who wants to like discover the SIEM world, like he can use Elastic Stack as like a beginning. So it's an open source solution, and you can learn a lot from it. So you can see all the different aspects of the SIEM, and also I have a good offensive security experience also. So I think that helped me a lot in my current job as a security analyst, because that built a good foundation for me to like identify the types of attacks and so on. So yeah, I think this is it from my side.
Okay. I mean, you mentioned your job. You both work at SoSafe in the security sector, both of you. Maybe you want to tell us what a typical working day looks like for you, if there is something like typical, you know.
Yeah. I mean, do you want to take? Should I?
Yeah, like I can take it. Like yeah, so like in SoSafe, like first, like I want to highlight that we have a really good working environment. So everything goes smoothly. So in our days, so I will try to specify the day as a security analyst. So we check like all the vulnerability incident event reports that we have, and we start like investigating them one by one and trying to find the root cause of this. And also we shouldn't forget that we are following our incident response policy, so we are following this policy for like everything. Yeah, and like after finishing our investigation, we submit our result. We contact the relevant teams for this incident in order to like fix those vulnerabilities or like issues. Yeah, so this is a quick summary of the day as a security analyst. Antonio?
Yeah, for me it's a little bit different, because I mean I do participate of like those engagements as well, but like my job as an application security engineer is just mostly work with the engineers trying to find specific vulnerabilities, dependencies that they've been using, like custom packages, and try to identify those things, and coming up with ways to automate those those vulnerabilities that are exposed. So just working with the engineers to add like additional tools to the pipelines, and just coming up with like ways to sort of like make our development process more secure. So it's still very like close to what I used to do back in the days, but I guess more focused on security now.
All right, sounds very interesting. Maybe you've shown at the end of the presentation some things, but are there any further resources you maybe want to share with the audience, like blogs, YouTube videos, books, something like that?
Yeah, I think like Amine and I did sort of like a very good selection of the resources that we think it's useful. I think the InfoSec community, from what I understand, like they do use a lot of the Twitter as well. So I use Twitter. I'm pretty inactive on that, but like it's mostly to sort of like understand what's going on. If there's something new, like a new exploit, some company got breached or something, it's usually the fastest place that you can get information from. So I would suggest like Twitter is a good place. But I think like in terms of of content, like I'm usually more interested, as I said, in to understand like how people do their work instead of like just looking for specific types of like vulnerabilities and all that stuff, because I can always recommend like OWASP top 10 and people can just go and read it. But I think it's more interesting to have that in a context, just like we try to do that today. Is just kind of give you a scenario, just like how we would go about exploit that application. And then Amine would do the sort of like back and forth with all the information that he found, instead of like just giving like specific technical information for people for them to consume. Because like sometimes it's just difficult if you're trying to transition into this area to understand it all. Like I definitely don't, and still lots of things to learn. And so it's always nice to kind of like go slow on that end. And seeing people that are actually pretty good or pretty passionate about this helps you to understand, or just like even shape your way to work as well.
Yeah, like me too. Like I have the same situation as Antonio. So I'm mainly following Twitter, but I am inactive. So I am just reading the news, following some interesting speakers. So yeah, like also like I would recommend like I am the type of guy who likes books rather than watching videos. So I would recommend like reading like all the possible books in regard automation with Python, because that will really help you in a SOC analyst position, because you will be able to like automate much of things, even within your SIEM, your extra tools that you need. So you will have like an automated workflow. So the thing that I would recommend is like to read all the possible books of Python and Python automation. Yep.
Okay. Thank you too so much for joining today and giving us this great talk. It was really a pleasure, and many greetings to Germany. Hope to see you again. Bye.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. So, and before we continue with our security topic day, we will have a break of about 45 minutes. Stay tuned, as we will have 3 speakers waiting to give their talks to you.
Have you found your dream job as a developer? Or are you stuck in an unfulfilling job? On WeAreDevelopers.com, you find over 1,000 jobs in Europe that fit the tech stack that you want to work with, and salaries go up to $130K. All you have to do is create a free profile, and you automatically get matched with jobs that fit your requirements. So what are you waiting for? Create your free profile and let companies apply to you now.